Hey, everybody. We are back with another How to Succeed podcast, the show that helps you get to the top and stay there. This is How to Succeed at Building a Nonprofit. I am your host, Mike Montague, and I am the head coach at Sandler. And my guest this week is Mike Kenny. He is from Warriors Ascent. We're going to find all about that and his mission to help save lives. And it's a big topic today. And we help a lot of nonprofits. We have a nonprofit scholarship that we give out at many locations around the world. If you're interested in that, go to Sandler.com, find a location near you, and reach out. But we love helping people, and we love having these guests on the podcast. We've talked previously about people using Sandler tactics to stop human trafficking in Africa, or to help veterans get new jobs and all kinds of cool things. So we're excited to talk to Mike Kenny about Warriors Ascent. Find them at warriorsascent.org. Mike, welcome to the show. Tell me a little bit about Warriors Ascent, what you're doing with the work there, and then we'll get into the Sandler stuff about how you've been growing it.
Fantastic, Mike. Hey, first and foremost, thanks so much. It's an honor to be here. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm Mike Kenny, Executive Director for Warriors Ascent. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that helps veterans and first responders with post-traumatic stress. We like to say that we empower our participants to take ownership of their lives and healing. And we do so with a 5-day program that provides our participants the tools to heal and tend the mind, body, and soul. So I'm a 22-year veteran myself, West Point grad, and spent, I'd say, the preponderance of my career in the Special Forces. And in the Special Forces, we'd always talk about building partner capacity and endeavoring to work ourselves out of a job. And our approach at Warriors Ascent is no different. In the end, we want to teach men and women to fish, not necessarily just give them fish. So really what it is that we are trying to do is give them the tools to get them on the path to healing. We, of course, provide a supportive community and a variety of other, I'll say, tools and enablers. But bottom line is we want to build the capacity.
Amazing mission. Thank you for your service, and thanks for helping the other veterans and stuff too. It can be quite a challenge. I want to start with our conversation, as we always do, with attitude. I know there's some alignments with what Sandler does and what you do in the attitude bucket, but well, let's go ahead and start there, and then let's talk about how nonprofits mess this up, because I think sometimes nonprofits have a tendency, maybe in the early years, to focus more on the mission and not on sustainability of maybe their resources and things, and how they can grow this. So there might be some common myths and misconceptions we can talk about in building a nonprofit.
Oh, absolutely. So as you'd mentioned before, we are, grateful to be one of the recipients for the scholarship program with Sandler through, I remember through Rick Burgess and Steve Montague, your dad. They interviewed us, and I believe it was Steve opined that, hey, in hearing about your organization and your approach, it very much, I'll say, philosophically aligns with Sandler, the Sandler method. Not the least of which is I'll say the attitudinal aspects of it. So you've got, mind, body, and spirit in Sandler. For us, hey, mind, body, and soul. That is, I'd say, an absolutely critical aspect of what it is that we do. It's a holistic program at Warriors Ascent. And I've come to find that Sandler is no different. Coming in, as I think I'd mentioned to you before, I was really expecting with Sandler that it would be more, I'll say, techniques based. All right, here's how to sell. Here's the sales process. Here's a pipeline. And I was very grateful and happy to find that actually it similarly is a very holistic approach. The attitudes, the behaviors, I'll say, setting the conditions for success. And then, of course, getting into the techniques. But getting back to what you were saying about running a successful nonprofit, I think exactly that. People get fixated on the mission, which they should, absolutely, because having a compelling case for support is absolutely critical. I mean, if you've got a mission that people can't get behind, you're not going to flourish. But at the same time, if you don't have the organizational structures, or if you don't have an attitude of success that our mission is worthy of support, and that we've got the skills and the attributes to dare I say, sell our program and make a compelling case for support such that people want to support, number one, and number two, that you can impress upon them the notion that you're a good custodian of donor funds and that you can
Sure.
actually deliver, and it's the outcomes-based assessment model, for lack of a better word. If you can't assure outcomes and the notion that you can convert those resources, donor dollars into great outcomes, you're not going to get the support success that you're looking for.
Well, that's an interesting place to start. And with your attitude that really you have at least two sales here, right? You have the sale to the people that you're serving, but you also have the sale to the donors to help you do this, that you can make those outcomes. And I think that's a great place to start. And I love that you mentioned the confidence there, is that you got to really believe that what you're doing, that you can make a difference and be able to prove that, to have that confidence to go to both parties and say, hey, we can help you and we can make a difference here, right?
Mike, you've touched on an absolutely critical aspect. I like to say that we have a bifurcated customer funnel, and the messaging for each is a little different, as is the value proposition. So, first and foremost, our clients, the people that we serve. I mean, that is our raison d'etre, right? So, our reason for being. And if we can't convey to our clients and our donors, for that matter, that we can actually produce good outcomes, then, hey, we're not worthy of support. So the messaging, the marketing, all of that really, at least for our customer, needs to be geared towards our methodology, the efficacy behind our approach, testimonials. What I'm sure you're familiar with Robert Cialdini and influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Bible, it's social proof, beyond just getting a sports star to say, I like these guys. No, you have a client that's like, hey, this program saved my life. And we have an abundance of those. I'll share with you a little bit, just very briefly, of my journey. I'm a very data-driven guy, systems engineer. So I was all about data, which we have. We've got a study done in an American Psychological Association journal, Journal of Psychotherapy Integration, that I'll say explicates and extols the virtues of the program, lays out what it is that we're doing and the efficacy and all that stuff. But I came to realize very early on, if you don't have that human aspect, that person that says, hey, listen, I'm a human being just like you, and I'm here to tell you this program really helped me, saved me, or in some cases, my kids still have a dad because of this program. That is the real thing that connects with people. And then if you've got the data to substantiate that claim, all the better.
Yeah, that is amazing. Before we move on to behaviors and what it takes to actually keep a nonprofit going like this, I wanted to ask you kind of what where do you feel like most nonprofits struggle, or what's the hardest part about keeping this thing going?
That's a great question. So, in terms of behaviors, goal setting, right? Short-term, long-term, daily goals. Not only do we need to abide by that, like I'll say organizationally, but, as I mentioned before, there are parallels between what it is that we teach our clients to keep them on track and put them on the path to healing. But then, we also have to abide by that ourselves, organizationally, and me personally. So we'll talk about self-efficacy as an example. And self-efficacy, I'll say clinically, is number one, the belief that you can in fact be effective, right? So it's more of like a system of beliefs. But part and parcel with that is the ability to be effective, such that you can actually convince yourself and believe that you are effective. And so much of that is goal setting. And that is one of the blocks of instruction that we'll teach at the tail end. We like to say, like in terms of like a life campaign plan, it's like we like to say, and I'm quoting, I think, Michael Hyatt. He says, people spend more time planning a vacation than they do planning their lives. You say that and people go, whoa, I've never thought of it like that. So we'll break out how to do that, how to plan, how to, both daily, monthly. We've done goal setting, seminars with Sandler, vision boards, all the stuff that you guys do. It's fantastic. And some of it, and I think probably a lot of people out there will go, yeah, no, I get it. There's no epiphanies there. But do you do it? Do you set the time aside? That is the critical aspect, is carving that time out.
Yeah, the hardest part about the behavior is actually doing it, right? There's a lot there. And I appreciate what you said, because I think it does line up a lot with Sandler, that we talk about all the time as being a product of our product and practicing what we preach. And I like that you have that too. I find in my life, I like these kind of traps for myself that if I'm going to tell everybody else to do their annual goal setting, I better do mine, and make sure I can prove it and have an example and work what I know works best. And I think that's what a lot of the behavior triangle is for me, is doing things that I think I know are sustainable. I know it's best practice, and I know it's going to get my peak performance and peak output. And I'm sure you saw that, and your clients see that a lot in the military too, is we know people don't perform at their best when they're stressed and tired and worn out. And we either need to put safeguards in there, or we need to make sure they don't get stressed and worn out and tired to do that. And keeping yourself together a lot of times is the first step to helping other people. And I think nonprofits need to hear that a lot.
We like to say, self-care is not selfish. So everyone's familiar with Stephen Covey, right? The seven principles of highly effective people. And he talks about sharpening the saw, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll say we're a big proponent of that. And we have a client base, a people group, veterans and first responders, for whom taking care of themselves, I'll say first is anathema to the way it is that they do business. But we like to say that if you're not showing up as your best self, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're really not doing anybody any good. So self-care is not selfish. You've got to set that time aside, and not in some overindulgent, hedonistic, way where I'm just going to go to the spa all day. No, certainly not. But, the other, I'll say metaphor that you use of militarism is in the military, you've got what they call PMCS, preventative maintenance checks and services. So your weapon systems, your vehicles, whatever they might be, you daily have to do your preventative maintenance checks and services to make sure that equipment is serviceable and it's going to be able to perform its mission optimally. And if you're not doing that for yourself, then you're failing. You're not showing up as your best self, and you're not doing anyone any good. So yeah, absolutely. I would say it's absolutely essential to make sure that any organization, nonprofits or otherwise, do the same.
And I love what you said about it's not going to the spa all day too. I think sometimes people miss that in your military training, testing your limits and expanding your comfort zones is an important part of living your best life. So it's not all about being comfortable and taking care of yourself a way that you're treating, but high intensity training, weightlifting and running is best for your health. It's not easy, but those are the right choices to maintain these systems that we have going too, right? It's not always just the care and cleaning of the equipment, but it's testing them and testing their limits too, that of people and processes and systems that really make them sustainable over time.
No, absolutely. One of the things that we'll talk about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think most people are familiar with the base needs, food, water, shelter, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's self-actualization. That's at the pinnacle, right? And a lot of people are like, what? What's that? And one of his sayings is, what one can be, one must be, right? And the other thing is, you can either step forward into growth or back into safety. And I think, not to wax philosophically now, but I think we are in an era where people are pursuing comfort at all costs. And they figure that, hey, the height, the apogee of civilization and evolution is to never be uncomfortable, to never, have to push yourself. And I think people do so to their detriment. And that's not to say, hey man, put your, we had some sub-zero weather here in Kansas City just the other day. So saying, hey, go run in shorts and a t-shirt and see how hard no, I'm not saying that. But, to do the tough things that are going to help you grow, that's absolutely critical. And some of that's going to be uncomfortable, and the other saying is growth is a little bit beyond your comfort zone, so I think having that mindset, and I know that is the case with Sandler, that they continue to reinforce that, hey, you got to put yourself out there. You got to do the uncomfortable things to be successful. So, and I'll say Warriors Ascent, both for our clients and then for our organization, our philosophy is no different.
And in building a nonprofit, what are some of the key behaviors that you have to do on a regular basis as far as, you know, planning, fundraising, keeping it going, making sure that you continue to get to do this? What are some of the things like in your cookbook for success?
So for us, I like to say, and again, I borrow from the military, our battle rhythm, as they call it, which is, all right, this is how we do business day to day, week to week, or whatever it might be. I mean, it's everything. The other thing, and I'll say backing up a little bit, in our plans, we'll have our lines of effort, and other militarism, organizational level planning. But obviously it's value creation of the programmatic. So we focus on that. And again, our piece de la resistance, what it is that we do is our 5-day, holistic program. That's what we're known for. But then the other forms of value, we'll do webinars, we'll do a podcast, and a variety of other things. Refresher training, it's not only for our alum, but it's also for donors, funders, supporters to kind of get a sense of where we're at. So we'll do stuff like that and track that. Hey, where are we with that? Let's market that accordingly. Then there's, related to that, the marketing. So you can have all sorts of value, but if you're not marketing that value so that it sees the light of day and people are aware of it, you've got nothing as well. So then there's that component. Then there's where Sandler comes in. There's the development piece. So, that for us is fundraising. Earned income is something that we're looking at as well. So beyond just the philanthropic, hey, please give us a donation, we're worthy of it, is doing some of what it is that we do for reimbursement, because we do those therapeutic retreats. And then, of course, there's admin and a variety of other things, but it's just the day-to-day, week-to-week planning, and then also the tracking, marketing. I know that's one of the facets of the the behavior triangle in terms of planning is tracking. But Peter Drucker says that which is measured is managed. So if you're not tracking it, if you're not seeing, what your social media reach is, what your conversions are, newsletter, outcomes with data. If you don't have a good sense of where you're at beyond the baseline, you're how can you measure progress if you and know that you're making a difference unless you measure it accordingly?
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, as we get to the technique bucket, I imagine that there's a whole bunch of these. So I'll just kind of start with an open-ended question about your Sandler experience so far. Have you found a particular Sandler rule, tactic, or technique interesting in helping you with building a nonprofit?
I would say the upfront contract is, an absolute game changer, because, so many people, I'll say, bumble into these meetings, and I never go into anything unprepared. It's not my nature as a military guy. But what I love about Sandler is with the techniques, beyond, again, I'll say that the condition setting, the behavioral, the attitudinal is, all right, hey, this is how you structure these things. So, the building rapport piece, absolutely critical. Pain funnel in terms of, hey, let me relate to what it is that these people are feeling in terms of pain. You mentioned before, we really have two funnels. One is our client, one is our donor. They feel different types of pain, and you need to appeal to them at a different level. So, geez.
Can you talk more about the donor piece? I don't want to interrupt you there, but I find it fascinating. Every nonprofit I talk to, they have similar, but I think different pains of why people would donate, especially large sums of money. In your experience, what are the problems they're trying to solve with those donations, and how are you getting people able to commit to yours versus somebody else's?
No, that's a great question. That's a question for the ages. No, my perception is this, and again, related to, some of the Sandler processes. In building rapport, you come to find, sometimes it's outright. Sometimes they'll say in their giving strategy, this is who it is that we give to, whether it's a corporation, a foundation, or what have you. But individually, invariably, you come to find, my brother was a veteran, or a family member or a friend committed suicide. There's a personal, it's beyond just, I like what you're about. There's a personal connection there. I'd say that's one. Mm-hmm. Two is what I was saying about the outcomes-based assessment model, meaning, all right, I'm going to give you money. What are you going to do with it? are you going to do something of value with it? Or are you just going to spend this and give out some tchotchkes, and sing Kumbaya and it's all going to be great? Like, can you show me a logical linkage between the dollars that I'm giving and the good outcomes that you're able to perpetuate? And that is absolutely critical as well. And then I'll say lastly is just being transparent. Them knowing that you are who you say you are. You're running a transparent organization. You're not living high on the hog, spending money willy-nilly, and that, all right, I feel like my investment, my money is going to a good cause and is really, truly making a difference. And then I'll say the last thing. I mean, I think some of the other stories are where maybe philosophically organizations don't align. At first you thought, hey, I thought this organization was, being transparent, this and that. And they come to find either there's some shenanigans or, hey, these guys or gals are not all they're cracked up to be. And now we're taking a black eye because we put our reputation on the line by donating to them. And they weren't really quite on the up and up. Those are all, I'll say, the donor pain things, certainly not comprehensive, but the major ones that I think we've come to find.
Yeah, really interesting. I'll give you one last swing at it here. Anything else you were hoping to talk about and mention, or anything else that we need to know about Warriors Ascent?
Well, geez, no, we've said so much. No, I'll just say I'm very grateful to Sandler, again, to your dad, Rick Burgess, for the, the scholarship program, which has helped us out immensely. I would say organizationally, one of the reasons we came to Sandler is you have to run a nonprofit like a business. And I think some people know that, but I think others think that the nonprofit mission is above that. And they can't be tainted by, by like a profit motive. No, I get that. But if you're not using the same best, practices to run a good business, you're not going to have a successful nonprofit. So the sales process needs to be tight, as is your marketing, as is your, value delivery, et cetera, et cetera. So, I don't mean to, I don't try to talk like I'm a super business guy. I'm a, military guy, but hey, having to learn, I'll say the business lexicon, the processes, it's absolutely instrumental. So, I'll say in parting, running your nonprofit like an efficient business is the surest way to success. And if you feel that is, in opposition to, the spirit and philosophy of your organization, I'd say kind of reevaluate that.
Yeah, I think the question is, how do you choose what works out of that business model? The companies do things for a reason, like some of their management hierarchies and how they operate and how they get their best out of their people. You would want to do the same, and they're fiscally conservative, trying to leverage as many resources as possible. How can you learn those lessons? That's a great ending thought here. But before we go, I want to learn more about you and your organization. As my dad's first nonprofit scholarship, I think I was the first scholarship recipient when I was 14 years old, 30 years ago. To talk to the latest one is a fun deal for me. So, Mike, tell me, at this point in your career and with what you've done with the military and warriorsascent.org, how do you define success at this point in your life?
Well, I'd say number one, the ability to actually help people. It's that whole service attitude. So, I'm a big fan of, self-improvement. I'm sure you're familiar with Brendan Burchard, High Performance Habits. I like that guy. He's a good dude. And he talks about, service over selfies. And I think so many people are like, well, you got to be famous. You got to be this, you got to be rich. And it's just like, man, if you're making a difference in people's lives and you're really running a good organization, that success will come. And however you manage that, or, however you quantify that, whether that's, hundreds, thousands, millions of dollars, hey, so be it. That's one.
People will hear about it. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, if you're able to help, when I hear, and again, I mean, I'm not looking for self-aggrandizement and the pat on the back, but when you hear people like at our graduation ceremony or afterwards say, hey, this program saved me, I'm like, hey, there it is. The other thing is, hey, I've run high performing organizations, my entire military career, or I've been a part of high performing organizations. And, for my part at Warriors Ascent, if I've got an organization that's making a difference, that's well run, that people have confidence in, I say that does my heart good as well. I get a big sense of satisfaction, so much so that, like I said, your dad and his crew saw fit to support us, believed in us. And, I want to live up to that. I want to be they're one of their greatest success stories, so I greatly appreciate that as well.
Awesome. Now, the flip side of this, I feel like you're going to have an interesting answer. So I'm going to give you kind of three choices here. What's your relationship with failure? Was there a biggest failure that you're most proud of? I can imagine all the hurdles you had to overcome in special forces, or your own, battles with PTSD or trauma and things, or any other, comments or thoughts you have about the failure side of things.
I'm a big believer in, what is it? I'll attribute it to Nelson Mandela. I'm pretty sure it's like, I never lose, I either win or learn. Right. So I'll share a quick anecdote. So I used to box for West Point. So West Point's got, their Brigade Open Boxing Championship. And I went on to fight in the regionals and nationals and stuff like that. But when I was a sophomore, I fought a senior and I was doing really well. I was like, all right, hey, and in the finals in front of the entire Corps of Cadets, man, this guy hurt me. He was standing 8 counts, and I wasn't cocky, but I was pretty self-assured. And this guy, he was big, strong, good, cut a lot of weight, and man, he hurt me pretty good. And so of course I lost. Didn't get knocked out, but 2 standing 8. So I remember going back to class, and one of my female cadet classmates was trying to pump me up, and she's like, "Oh, you looked good out there." And I looked at her, and I'm like, "Were you watching the same match that I was fighting in?" No, but I remember at that point, it was just like, man, I've got 2 choices. I can either say, the heck with this, I don't want to get embarrassed like that again. Or I can say, well, I need to reevaluate what I did wrong and why this guy was able to beat me. And I either retool and recalibrate and come back better and stronger, or I quit. So, man, I retooled, recalibrated, practiced, and I won it the next 2 times and went on to, win the regionals, come in second in the nation in the NCBAs. So
amazing.
I feel good about that. And so, and then I'll just say that mindset has followed me all throughout my military career.
I find that really interesting too. It's a backwards law of life here, that you don't gain confidence by winning. You gain confidence by failing and then overcoming those failures, right?
I'll tell you, I like that. I really do. Not that anyone wants to fail. I hate to fail, but it's just the price of doing business. But you're absolutely right. There are people for whom life is relatively easy. And I don't mean that and they've been coddled, but they're very talented. But then what happens is, when they're faced with adversity, some people can't take it. Some people, they have a setback or a failure and it crushes them. And I think that's very disempowering. I really, truly believe that people should have their share of, failures, the whole Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena, it's a character builder because, I'm a big fan of what Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. And, you really learn and grow by overcoming those obstacles. If your life is a cloudless sky and you've not faced adversity, you really can't say, hey, that you're that strong, because you've never faced it.
Yeah. The last thing I would add too is don't be afraid to ask for help in those situations. That's what warriorsascent.org is for. If you're struggling with those issues, that's what Sandler is for. If you're struggling in your business or you've hit some sort of plateau and you need a coach sometimes or help to get through those times, there's no shame in that. That's part of what we're all doing to learn and grow and help each other and get past those things. So I'm sure you have a thought there. We'll make this your last one. What would you say about people that need to reach out for help at warriorsascent.org?
No, absolutely. And that's a great point. Yeah. No man or woman is an island, and I think a lot of veterans and first responders in particular, they're like, hey, I'm tough. I can hang. I'll share this with you. A lot of that article I mentioned speaks about the multimodal group therapeutic, approach. And it's that group therapeutic approach is very important. And some of the major, I'll say, epiphanies are when you see a group of guys or gals, they're all sharing their stories and they're being open and vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm hurting, or this hurt me, or I'm really grappling with this. And then you get someone across the room going, you too? I'm not the only one. Mm-hmm. And they've got that shared, like, no, you're not the only one. There are a lot of people that feel like you, and we can all help one another. So that's one. The other is the notion that beyond just knowing that they're not alone, it's the notion that, oh, I'm not the weak one. I'm not less than, oh, because a lot of people in their minds are thinking, if I'm feeling this way, it's because I'm not as good as I thought I was, or I'm not as tough as I thought I was. And this is really just proof positive. It's that whole, Carol Dweck fixed versus growth mindset, which I'm sure you're, aware of, that the fixed mindset is the one where, hey, if I have a setback, or I fail, it's because, hey, I'm not made for it. Versus the growth mindset, which is, no, this is all part of growth. I'm going to learn, I'm going to get better. But it's the same thing. It's like this notion that, hey, if you're feeling it, you need help. You are not the only one. And there are other people that can help. There are other people that have been where you are right now and have been through what you're going through and can help you along, and get the hand up, not the handout.
I love that. And I'll add one more thing that I've noticed in Sandler sales mastery classes or other accountability groups and support groups that I participate in, is the funny thing is, like, everybody is similar and everybody struggles, like you mentioned, but also I found that, like, everybody has their own thing. And sometimes when you talk to other people who don't have your same hang up, you start to realize that maybe it's different, or there's a different solution to it. And you were running into the same wall and somebody else found a creative solution around it. And you're just like, they're like, oh yeah, I struggled with that and I just did this and it helped me out a ton. And you go, oh my gosh, well, how did I not think of that? Or how have I been struggling with this for years? And I didn't know that the solution was whatever. I've worked in a lot of groups, but like low potassium or not getting outside and walking in sunshine, like a lot of times will make a huge difference. And you're like, oh, I thought I was, I was a failure. I thought I had some serious problems. It turns out I just needed to take a multivitamin. Those kind of like aha epiphanies can be life-changing. And when you get in a group, you see those different perspectives, and those different perspectives add a lot of value, as well as the sameness of knowing that you're not alone in these things. So that's huge. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Mike Kenny, go to warriorsascent.org if you want to help the cause, or somebody that needs help. Check them out, warriorsascent.org. And check out Sandler. For more information, go to sandler.com. You can find a training location near you. You can reach out to our enterprise team if you have a gigantic organization, or you can get our free resources and join us at the Sandler Summit coming up here in just a couple of weeks, I think, from the time that you are listening to this. So go to sandler.com/summit if you'd like to join us live in Orlando and have a nice group meeting there too. Meet about 1,000 other high performers at the Sandler Summit. Sandler.com. Until next time, whatever you are, be a good one. That's what I always say. See ya.